How politicians manipulate the masses, social manipulation theory. How does the politics' toxic relationship with the media and the government's control of the educational system manipulate us to always choose the lesser evil and accept the toxic political culture? Today we'll talk about the theory of political manipulation, or why we constantly have the sense that we're being cheated no matter who's in power. Propaganda, mass media, and national politics are very new inventions, little more than 100 years old, against which societies have developed almost no defense mechanisms. To put it bluntly, we are politically framed, both nationally and internationally, by propaganda. Since one of my main areas of interest is interpersonal communication, I couldn't ignore the eminent thinker and linguist of the 20th century, Noam Chomsky, and his theory of manipulation. For this video, I chose 10 elements of manipulation that relate to what we observe around us. The rules are very applicable today and are in constant use, whether we like it or not. I, for one, don't like it because it is a very brutal manipulation. So here is how to run a society. Let's go. Number 1, distraction. The human mind has a limited capacity. It's easy to overload it with information, especially nowadays. In the past, it was not possible to force newspaper or media in countries without a totalitarian government to drop an inconvenient topic and replace it with a more emotional but less important one. It was necessary to actually create a replacement topic that was even more shocking, and that didn't always work. These days, we often witness the deliberate creation of crises done very quickly and, for some reason, clearly correlated in time with strategic and unpopular decisions of the government, or pushing some regulations in the parliament, or sweeping another scandal of the rulers under the carpet. The problem is that in modern media, what counts are clicks, and more of these clicks can be generated by a social scandal than a complex legal issue or a corrupt politician. That doesn't shock anybody. And even in non-totalitarian countries, the media is very often heavily dependent on advertisers. So if the government controls huge companies, the rulers treat those companies' advertising budgets as their own, directing it where it benefits them most. In the past, people were threatened with a police baton. Now they are threatened with no paycheck. Political corruption will always find ways to distract us from important matters. In addition, Facebook and other social media customize the first page to the preferences of the individual user, so the website itself will throw at you a more clickable and scandalous drama rather than an issue of corruption or abuse of power, which are clearly more important from the point of view of the country's well-being. A politician who wants to manipulate public opinion will want to diminish the importance of the topic that is inconvenient for him, and will do so by distracting the viewer and the media. Flashy, clickable phrases drown out uncomfortable questions. Number 2, create a problem and suggest a solution. This pattern is sometimes referred to as problem, reaction, solution. You can create a problem or a new narrative to an existing problem so that it becomes very current and relevant. People will join you. Sometimes they'll go out into the streets. Then you can use this energy to make the changes you want, which would otherwise be very unpopular. You wanted it yourself. You said that the problem had to be solved. This is not a perfect solution, but it's the best available. This narrative frequently echoes from politicians. Whether it's an unresolved problem of inefficiency and bad design of the legal system, or perpetual problem with the solvency of Social Security, or lack of fair medical coverage for all, the responsibility is always shifted to the citizens. Of course, problems solved this way generate new problems and dissatisfaction. But then, just follow the exact same strategy again, and you'll win your next battle. That is, a problem arises, politicians see the problem, understand it, look at it, find the culprit, that is, react, and propose solutions that will generate the problem again down the line. The essence of these problems is the fact that they are unsolvable by ordinary citizens who must depend on politicians. If every problem could be solved by a citizen on his own, why would they need politicians, and ones to whom they can be grateful for solving all these problems? Number 3, introduce changes gradually. Why? There are two reasons. One is because people get used to good things quickly, and the other is because people get used to bad things quickly. If you want to fix a situation that someone has broken, and it is possible to do it slowly, why hurry? In the first year, you'll fix a little bit and make yourself a hero. In the second, a little bit again, and you are a hero again. In the third year, again, and similar in the fourth. You will ensure yourself a long career of a hero. I remember a conversation with a good friend in which this model of operation became very clear. His father worked for a company dealing with railway repairs and was in charge of allowing higher speed limits on certain sections of repaired track. He said this: "We can renovate this section in 1 year and increase the speed limit by 20 kilometers an hour. But why? Better to increase it by 1 kilometer an hour every year. Then there is progress, we are praised, and we have work for the next 20 years. But people also get used to bad things. If you make an unpleasant change all at once, the discontent will be focused on that one moment and result in a big outburst of anger. If you make unpleasant changes gradually, year after year, delicately, people won't even notice. For example, if you want to raise taxes by 10%, you raise them by 2% every year, and each time it's only for limited time because we have a lofty goal. Well, nobody will fight for $2 out of 100, and in 5 years you will have increased taxes by 10%. Hardly anyone will notice, especially when you also change the accounting methods. In addition, politicians use numerous rhetorical tricks, both formally and informally, calling a new tax by one of its less stinging names, like levy, contribution, fund, excise duty, solidarity fee, outlay. As you can see, there are many tricks, but the result is the same. If you went into hibernation for 10 years, you would wake up in a completely different tax reality and no one would understand your indignation. But when it's little by little, nobody notices that anything is happening. Number 4, deferral strategy. Carefully prepare the upcoming changes and design them not only as something that is introduced gradually. Announce them as inevitable. It is easier for people to agree to actions that will have results in the distant future rather than to a sharp change tomorrow. Separate your decisions as far as possible in time from the consequences that follow them. People naively believe that everything will turn out okay. This will help you make even bigger changes when necessary. For example, today you can vote on something that will start to have perceptible effects in 15 years. People will take it much easier. Here you can look at the unfortunate example of Social Security, an institution that is collapsing, but by regularly voting in additional federal budget, it is propped up and the collapse is postponed for another few months or years. So what does it mean for the 35-year-olds today that in 30 years their monthly retirement won't cover even one shopping in a supermarket? Not much, because somehow everyone naively thinks that it will somehow work out. Perhaps so, but at what cost and to whom? Both the current government and the current 30-somethings don't seem to care very much. Number 5. Talk to the public like to a child. If you talk to people as if they were children, they will most likely respond like children. Simplify messages to blur them. If you use a model, use such great simplifications as to make it easy to distort. Talk about thieves, talk about historical justice, talk about redress, about making amends, talk about corrupt cases. Call your rivals every insult from the dictionary of an 8-year-old gangster. If you talk about problems using only big words, like that you have been deceived, robbed, or betrayed, and then propose your solutions. This will confuse society enough that most will not notice the inconsistency and complexity of the situation. They will fight for you because you will give them the illusion of knowledge, of understanding the solution. They'll feel that someone finally understands me, because it is very easy to identify with such simple phrases. You can actually answer this question now as you're watching this video. Have you been cheated, betrayed, or robbed? Certainly. So whoever said it must understand me, and his path will make amends for me. This will be much easier to accept than the true statement that the problem is very complex. Whose fault is it that our wages are low? Foreigners, illegal immigrants. Simple, isn't it? The previous government. Even simpler, right? Thieves. The simplest. Where are the thieves? They were in the previous government. Look how simple this world is, almost like the world of an 8-year-old. Number 6. Focus on emotions, not rationality. The more overexcited our emotions are, the less room there is for any sense. The more turned on our emotions are, the faster we react as humans. Our simplified ways of reasoning take effect, we fall into cognitive traps and forgo rational discourse. Emotions immediately lead to building a world of metaphors and myths, which are then used to build fears or evoke specific behaviors. For example, calling thieves all those who take advantage of the privileges assigned to the profession of a politician labels entire social groups, which ignites emotions. Jonathan Haidt said it best: "It's an emotional tail waving a rational dog." We let ourselves be drawn into conflict by these simplified slogans, full of cognitive errors, myths, and fiction, useful for each side. This way, it is easier to instill desires, fears, and behaviors. It is easier to persuade people to do something that until only recently was inconceivable. The truth becomes worthless. Number 7. Keep people ignorant. Call a conspiracy theorist anyone who talks about government control. Make society unable to understand control methods. Maintain a state of disinformation and internal conflict so long that the most rational observers, who might be against you, will finally say, "I'll stay away from this topic." The resignation of rational people from participating in public debate and catching the abuses of power is a success for politicians. In addition, the education system and the systems for informing the society itself must be at such low level that jumping over the abyss of ignorance is almost impossible. The control techniques must remain incomprehensible to the general public. Number 8. Promote mediocrity. Being average should be a virtue. More, let that average drop lower and lower. Being uneducated and stupid but clever is to become the norm. It is to become desirable and worthwhile in itself. Let being educated be shamed. Let reason be an obtrusion, nitpicking, a trait of unhappy people. Let the practitioner be more important than the theorist. Set them as opposites so they don't cooperate. Only those who know life are on the opinion-forming pedestal. Average education, average salary, average flat, average credit, average marriage are the aspirations of a true patriot, a model of virtues. Anyone who sticks their head out will have their head cut off. Number 9. Amplify people's sense of guilt. Let them feel guilty for their own fate. Not responsible, because that would make them want to change, but guilty. Then, instead of rebelling and questioning the rules of the game, they will blame themselves and have low self-esteem and low sense of agency. In such a state, they'll be passive and open to all suggestions. Passivity means lack of change. Number 10. Know people better than they can know themselves. Social sciences allow us to better understand society, its behaviors and tendencies. While this does not guarantee total control, it does provide sufficient amount of it. The data collected on the population is being analyzed more and more deeply and more effectively. An ordinary person does not have access to this data, and even if he did, he would not be able to analyze it. This leads to a situation where the rulers have more control over the individual than the individual him or herself. They know where to apply unnoticeable pressure to disproportionately increase the probability of the desired behavior. These rules don't work separately. There is a deep synergy between them, reciprocal enhancement of effects. Additionally, they make any discussion similar to chewing gum, pleasant, easy, short-lived, and without consequences. Our minds like it, but is it good for us? These 10 items are not bulletproof. You can counteract their influence, especially in the age of new media and access to information. However, the less you accept being manipulated, the more energy you have to devote to verifying facts and analyzing the logic of information presented to you. Some people take shortcuts and develop antitrust. They read as the opposite any information that has its source in the official state, economic and scientific spheres. It is like being skeptical to the level of toxic skepticism, where you dismiss every piece of information until you experience it yourself and understand it with your own reasoning. It's easy to overdo it with negation and join the ranks of people who see conspiracies everywhere about global warming, health and vaccination, or even the spherical shape of our planet. The fight against this manipulation is not about rejecting rational mechanisms, but about seeing those places where someone is trying to draw you into their ideological narrative. Then it is up to you to decide how you should react and what questions you should ask. It is, however, important to react and not get carried away by the ideological wave. So, what level of being manipulated will you allow yourself? How much energy are you willing to expend on fighting it? I'll leave you with these questions, wishing you to remain extraordinary after all.